So with that said, before handing things over to my good friend Brad Christiansen from Mansfield Energy, I want to let you know how we kind of came about with today's topic, which is the importance of partnership. So about a month ago, Brad and I were talking, and I asked if he would share some industry knowledge and wisdom that he's dealt with over the years with, some of our customers and our Sage partners in the best way to prep, implement, maintain, and scale warehouse automation. And like he just did for Mansfield. And so he said, we'll do one better. Let's have a webinar about this. So I thought it a perfect way to introduce Brad to the world of all of us, but also, he can rub off on you some of the tips and tricks that he's dealt with implementing Scanco. So with that said, Brad, the floor is all yours, my friend.
Thank you, Ross. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll try to make sure this is a meaningful and valuable session for your 30 minutes with us. Barcode scanning has been really a part of our career in the lubricant distribution and fuel distribution business for over 30 years. Barcode scanning obviously isn't new, and some of you might be evaluating a decision to move forward. So what we really talked about was how do we make decisions about technology such as barcode scanning. So why use it at all? We'll talk about some of those things, and we'll look at the workflows that support it properly and effectively. The importance of establishing baselines. If you're going to make any investment in technology, you obviously want to understand what your current state is, and that way in your future state, you can assess the value of the investment that you've made in technology. This is a critical step that a lot of folks don't pay a lot of attention to, so we'll give you some tools there that you can duplicate. And those tools have to do with those industry metrics that Ross has included in that handout. These are things that we have used for many, many years as a comparison. I think you'll find value there. And then we'll spend a little time talking about some of the stuff that you might want to just know is going to be a difficulty or a challenge during any automation project, especially related to warehouse related technologies due to interference and electrical rack and metals and things like that happen. So we'll talk a little bit about our roadmap and what we believe, why we've partnered with Scanco and Sage historically to do some of these things, both valuable partners. And we'll give you a little bit of tips about some of the things that we look for when we create a relationship with a company like Scanco. Barcode scanning is not new, right? We've all seen it for years until COVID and the real reason of QR codes. Those codes have been around for a long, long time. So you might be asking, why would I even begin to consider barcode scanning? It's a common sense, one of those common sense throwaway kind of ideas, just like your smartphone. 20 years ago, when we thought long distance calls were troublesome, now we use our smartphone for everything. Well, barcode scanning is kind of in that same place. So if you want to make that investment, it's a common sense kind of decision that a lot of us just realize and believe that it's going to move us faster, provide better control, give us more accuracy. And that's all true. But in my world, I have a boss and he has a boss, and we have financial people we have to answer to. So we can't just go throw money at barcode scanning. So we have to do a little bit of work of justification. So we ask ourselves, how do we get return on this investment? Fundamentally, if you've never used it before, there might even be simpler questions like, how is it even going to work? And how do I put it in? And how do I turn it on? And what's its value? Is it going to stay up and run and work? And is it going to be reliable? And then we'll talk a little bit about, gosh, why do people not invest in the technology? And especially in the oil business, there's a lot of old school thought, pencil and paper, muscle through getting drums on trucks and sending them down the road. And that works in a lot of ways. And there's some folks, as small as they are, or even some larger ones, that just don't feel this is worth their time because what they do now works just fine. And other parts of that coin are, wow, this is too expensive. We're not going to invest in technology. We're not going to spend any of that money. And what you're realizing is this is really not that expensive. But these are the things that people are struggling with. And if you're struggling with those things, please use that chat. Let's put some questions in there. I'll be glad to address them if I can. And if not, we'll take it away and we'll provide you some more support. But what we did here, what we always do around this technology, is we stepped back and said, okay, what is the promise that a company like Scanco makes to the public about barcoding and why should we do it? And we looked at that like we would with any vendor. And then we went internal and we looked at all the places that Scanco could help us as a company with its scanning technology. And what we realized really quickly, obviously, is that it touches every part of our enterprise, from receipt of goods to putting things away in bins to pulling them back out, putting them on trucks, scanning orders, scanning items, picking loads, loading trucks, scanning it on the truck. And then at the other end, the driver's scanning it off, getting electronic signatures just like the UPS or FedEx driver could do today. And all along the way, we are analyzing these cycle times. When we began to see all the places that it could apply, it really did become a no-brainer kind of a decision. But like everything, we have to justify the investment. So we saw quickly, physically, where everything would work. And then we had to examine our current behavior and kind of do some time motion analytics. What is it taking today to do it? The promise is that we're going to be able to go faster. The promise is that we're going to be more accurate. So if that's the promise, how do we know at the end of it that we succeeded? Well, the only way to do that is to set baselines. And so we took a deep look at every phase from that slide, and we understood how many people it took, how long it took, time motion sampled. We looked at our accuracy of orders and shipping, because part of the big payoff here that we'll speak about is, what does it mean to our customers, right? It's all good that we're working smarter, not harder, faster with more accuracy, but that's all good. But if it can also provide a payoff to our customers and bring longevity and stability to a customer relationship, that's a real win from the technology. So we went out and we studied every part of it, every touch point, every put away, every pull, every pick, every placement, every order, every delivery. So now we had a data set of what our current state really is. Well, then we have to understand compared to what. And this is in that handout. The Warehouse Educational Research Council is one I've used with distributors for many, many years, 30 years in the business automating distribution for companies. And that's currently what we're doing here at Mansfield. We have used this, especially where the client or the business does not fully know what good looks like. If we're not careful, we always compare ourselves to ourselves. Am I better this year than last year? Am I better than 2 years ago? Am I beating my budget? So it's really an internal comparison. And while that's really valuable and important and meaningful, what we've also found is it can be kind of closed off, because we might feel really good about our performance this year versus last year, but we really need to assess, how am I against the planet or other people like me? In our business, we have a couple ways we can do that. We have study groups where we share financial information with one another in non-competing markets and use, the iron sharpens iron mentality to claw our way up and get better than we are just comparing ourselves to ourselves. We're now comparing ourselves to 18 or 20 other distributors who do what we do. But this is an independent opportunity. So I don't know your business, but if you don't have those kinds of resources, in the handout, there's a few different ones we use. The one I chose for this example was the Warehouse Educational Research Council, because it really sets standards about how things happen in a warehouse, in a distribution set. And you can see from the slide that there's a focus on customer metrics and outbound metrics, capacity, and employee, how fast are we picking, how accurate are we doing that? And then there's this magic one down at the bottom, the perfect order index, and that's where we really can kind of speak about how we're doing in the eyes of a customer. So these are the techniques we used, and these are the measures. And you can see from the columns there that if I am less than 94% on time, I have a major opportunity to improve our performance. And I'll be honest with you, when we took a hard look at ourselves, we were really in some places where the barcode scanning made a huge impact. That was really in our situation around the speed to fulfill orders and the accuracy in which we did it. If you think about a drum of oil, inside that drum can be a conventional product, the way we used to make oil back when I was a kid and Arnie Palmer was the Pennzoil guy. Now today, that same drum could be filled with a full synthetic chemical lubricant. The difference is a drum might cost us $500 of conventional product and $1,500 if it's a full synthetic oil. Now, if I make a mistake in the warehouse and ship a full synthetic to a customer, I've lost inventory. Now, it also then, even if the customer is honest with me and tells me, hey, that's not the right product, and I get that drum back, I still have disappointed a customer and I still have additional expense to get the product there. And so what we found was those two areas were very important to our improvement, and they were measurable, which made the investment that we're making in barcode scanning, and we have done this, we've been on Scanco for quite a while as a company, but it was the reason that we did it. And in this situation, that perfect order index, when we think about how our customer views our business and can this technology help us, we saw that an accurate, on time, in full delivery without a mistake on the invoice is the holy grail. It makes customers happy. It makes us more efficient. We get it done in one trip. So that was a measure that I would encourage everyone, as you start to consider scanning, pay close attention to how well you're doing in these categories. Use some of this information to kind of scorecard how effective you really are versus how effective you feel you are. It's easy to look at barcode scanning and say, gosh, this just makes sense. It's just like having a smartphone. But do yourself one big advantage, measure what you're doing before you put it in, because then confidently you will see improvement in your business, and you will see that the investment you're making easily is worth every penny. So there's a lot of analytics in that set. Please review it. And if there's any other questions around it, we'd be glad to answer those coming up here. But now let's talk about, okay, we've justified the decision in our minds. We've set a baseline. We're going to execute it. But what do we have to pay attention to? Well, when you're in a warehouse, especially in some of our warehouses, some of these buildings are multi-tenant buildings. So today there's a lot of Wi-Fi communication that goes on in any warehouse. Besides the fact that you got metal racking and all kinds of other things that are painful to Wi-Fi related signal, you want to make sure that you have a good mesh network. Sometimes mesh networks are referred to by your technical people as access points. And you actually want to do a heat map of your warehouse. There's tools that your networking people would have or an outside consultant would have to come in and assess the signal quality and where should we put these access points throughout our facility to make sure that as a handheld moves through the building to pick an order or to put product away, that it's always partly connected to our network and having no connectivity related issues. Of all of our troubleshooting, where we ever had any trouble, it was related to the signal of information in the warehouse. And so it's good to get that done before you go out. Make sure your warehouse is wired properly to support those handhelds anywhere in the building where you're picking and pulling and putting away product. The other part to get ready is to really have a logical layout of your warehouse. If you haven't barcode scanned yet, the powerful features that Scanco provides are things like bin locations and slotting. So you want to grid your warehouse, you want to mark it, you want to barcode it and tag it, you want to train to it, get a good map of where products go, because this is a powerful technology that assures 100% pick accuracy if you use it correctly. And the units of measure of a product, am I shipping a case? Am I breaking that case open and shipping in each? Am I shipping them in multi-packs? Make sure your units of measure are ready. Make sure your bin locations are there, easily marked in your building so that even a new person and this is where we really found value in barcode scanning. If you didn't know what a GX 220 gear oil looked like, but I told you where it was and I gave you a weapon that when you scan that barcode, if it's not the right thing, it's going to beep. I can take a person who's never seen our product line and have them be an effective order picker in less than a day. That's critical in this world where we're all short on personnel. So huge things to set up there. Big risk that I saw in a lot of cases as I was consulting in this industry for a lot of years, there would usually be one guy or gal that really loved the barcode scanning, and they were the single subject matter expert for the business. And if they choose to leave, or they retired, or they left for any other reason, the business suffered from exposure. So don't, no matter what you do with technology, make sure it's not a one-man band. You've got multiple people that understand. They would be considered subject matter experts. The powerful part with a partnership like Scanco is there's lots of resources to bring even a new person up to speed and give them that expertise quickly. But it's always a good idea to make sure you have more than one brain trust, so that if something happens, you're not exposed with a person who knew all of it and no one else knew anything. Remember, it's technology. And if you've ever run Microsoft products, you understand that things break. And so what do? You have to have a plan B. In our world, Texas right now, we experienced a pretty big rainstorm this morning. Sometimes that can cause power to go out. Now, these are battery units, but the wireless network doesn't work when the power is down. These devices are smart. I can continue to pick and store those orders, and when the electricity comes back up, I can synchronize them. But in catastrophic situations, you better have a plan B to be able to fall back on. So always have a plan B to support technology. Sometimes that's an extra handheld in our inventory. As big as we are, we have extra handhelds at every facility. And we use those, by the way, when we do physical inventory. So it doesn't mean that you're putting an investment out there and not using it. It just means that you have extra things to put in play if something were to break. But probably the most important thing on this list is don't spend money on technology until you really understand what it's going to do for you. It's one thing to be faster, stronger, easier, and more accurate. But if you can't put a pencil on what the future state looks like versus the current state, in our world where we have to get capital from a parent company, I have to justify that investment. And it's wise if you would do that too. Biggest part of our life, really, and my job as a business applications and integrations leader, is I have to seek out and find powerful partners. Partners like Sage with a very solid, very strong general ledger accounting system. And partners like Scanco that have a track record of being very good at their industry. And we were blessed, they had a very good relationship with Sage, and it's been a long-term partnership that's blossomed excellent value for us. But when we think about the future state, why does a partner stay a partner? We have an internal development. Our master parent company is a development. They have built their own general ledger systems, their own distribution systems. My division does not do that. We believe in this division that if we partner with companies like Sage and Scanco, we trust Scanco is going to be very focused on their business. They're going to be innovators around barcode scanning. They're going to be on the horizon, what's coming, what's changing. Technology is moving so fast that we couldn't possibly keep up. So if we wrote our own barcode scanning solution as an example, we would have to have resources to R&D to keep that system relevant and aggressively looking towards the future. So we picked them because of their ability to look into that future and continue to keep us on the very, very leading, powerful edge of maximizing scanning technologies. And when you sit down to look at solutions, you could literally buy barcode scanning in a lot of different places. But their relationship to Sage, their history with us, and their vision of the future has made them the core supplier in this part of our technology platform set. We look forward to what's coming. Imagine if you've ever seen augmented reality. Think about your phone. You think about the back of a Pennzoil bottle and it's got a barcode. Today, imaging goes well beyond just scanning. The image of that bottle can create a full commercial running on someone's phone. And we need a partner like Scanco to make sure that we don't have to go learn about that technology. They're bringing all that information to us to keep us relevant going forward. And always with our partners, when we sit down with a Sage and we sit down with a Scanco and we talk about what we're trying to do in our future, we want to know what good looks like before we even start. So just like you're investing a few minutes on the call today, we are very effective with barcode scanning. We are effective to the point where out in our trucks, we deliver everything through barcodes, and we make less mistakes. We deliver on time. So these are things, if you want to understand what good looks like, connect to Ross. He can put you in front of lots of customers that communicate about what we've had success with, and we're one of them. We are actually here at our option. We decided we really are very comfortable, and we are just renewing with Scanco a new development project that's underway. And we do that because we trust them, and we also have a very clear vision of what we are creating. Over the next 5 years, Mansfield Service Partners has one core set of financial technology, but we have 14 other applications that integrate to that to run our business. Everything from waste collection and EPA, environmental reporting, all the way out to supply chain decisions from Shell and other manufacturers of products. So over the course of our roadmap, we are really already engaged with Scanco on a very significant deployment that's coming towards our future. It's going to allow us to be aggressively acquiring companies. In our business model, the industry is getting smaller in ownership count, but it's still as big as it ever was. Every year we consume about the same amount of oil we did last year, which is 250 billion gallons a year in the United States, and we're after our portion of the market share. So these partnerships are important, and our direction is valuable. So when we talk about partnership, we talk about really being an open communicator with Ross and the team about what our true strategies are in the market. They're behind the curtain with us, and they're there because we believe in them and we trust them. Just like we trust Sage as a financial accounting solution. It's been a long-term stable solution for us. And when we start working together with those partners, it allows us to integrate 14 disparate software platforms that help us run our business every day, knowing that we are not alone. And as you start thinking about your future, having a strong partner, no matter what the platform, no matter what decision you make sure that those partners are really looking at you as a true valued source of information, which helps them keep their product relevant and growing. If you do that, then these other technical questions that are out there are just a lot easier to deal with. So with that, we'll kind of turn it back to the moderator for additional questions, thoughts. I can't see the chat there, so I'm not sure if any questions came in.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it. That was well informed, and we're getting a couple coming through. And obviously, as they come through, we'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. But I did promise you to get you out of here in 30 minutes or less, or your pizza's free. So we'll go ahead and get into it, and then we'll be in contact with you separately. So one thing was kind of a overwhelmingly well-asked question, and we get this a lot, even not today's webinar, is, from an implementation standpoint, you have your expected timeline of we want to be live by X. What was the actual timeline, or what should we expect?
That's a great question. What I've done here is in some supporting information, here's what it kind of looked like for one of our sites. We make acquisitions, and so we have to do this routinely, right? We buy a company and we've got to go bring them up on the technology. But when we first started, there was a planning phase, and then we had to go out and mark the warehouse. We tested everything. We did our benchmarking like I talked about. And then we tested the technology in the field. Big area is making sure all your items are scannable. So some things come with SKU scanning, others you have to print a barcode and put it on it, kind of thing. And then all along the way, we reviewed our SOPs. Now, we did this over a 6-month deployment, but you can do it faster. We were just very diligent here because we knew we'd have to do it in multiple warehouse locations, and we wanted to have it down correctly. So this is what it took. It took us 6 months. We've done it in as little as 35 days from zero. So once you've done one warehouse, it obviously gets easier to do the next one. But that's a great question.
Awesome. Well, one that I'd like to kind of bring to light too is, you talked about, and we're seeing a lot more with our companies, and maybe you can touch on this, is the multiple location approach, right? It's not just unique to the petroleum industry, it's unique to a lot of our customers that have several locations that are multi-state or multi-city within the same state. So, if we have a few minutes, why don't you walk through what it's like kind of onboarding single versus all and what your experience is?
Yeah, I think I put some additional information here. So let's talk about it in this light, right? Do you do them all at once? You do a rolling implementation. We might have 2 acquisitions going at the same time. So I have to have a team of people, right? That's that single point of failure. But if you're a multi-site operation and you're thinking about doing this, am I going to do it all at once, or am I going to roll it through the organization? Depending on the facility's technical team and visionary forward thinking, that's kind of where we make this as a game time decision. When we make an acquisition that has multiple locations, we're making an assessment. If I train all these people at one point, can they each bring their site up and us come over site with them and bring them all up at the same time? Sometimes that's successful and sometimes it's not. So what we've learned is I can do it all at once if I have a fairly strong team or at least one subject matter expert that I can train, because then we can coach them through it. It's not hard, it's not complex, but it does take time. And then what kind of setup issues, how clean is their inventory? If those, during the acquisition, you kind of get a feel for that. If those things are clean and ready, then yes, we can do it all at once. But if we see any red flags, like they have limited resource or very small teams, or their inventory handling is kind of dirty or messy, and if they have a high degree of variance, then we don't normally try to do them all at once. We would take one side at a time, take a little longer, clean up their procedures, and then move forward quickly. Sometimes you have to slow down to go fast. Great question.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, listen, Brad was generous enough to provide some additional information as well as part of this. So when we do send out the email, we will have an addendum to this. So you actually have some, other baseline things, other information, some of this as well, to really, guys, kind of help you on your path to automation if you are not new to it, or if you've been doing it and how to grow and scale it. So again, a very special thank you for all those that attended today. Registered, and a very, very special thank you to Brad for doing this today and being such a great advocate for Scanco and sharing his success.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.